Yeah,
Go to speaker view, everybody, if you can. And the other thing is that you have been muted. You can, because we haven't had large numbers at any questions and answer, you can unmute yourself to talk if you want to. Otherwise, please use the chat facility at the bottom of the page. If you go down to the bottom of your screen, it says chat. And what you do is press on there and just type in your question, and then I will ask John the question. So you can do it either way at the moment. If we get a lot of people, the reason that we put you on mute is to stop the background noise if there is anybody. So if there's somebody hoovering in the other room or making a noise in the kitchen, we don't all hear it. So there we are. It was very interesting to see the video, John, and I enjoyed it immensely. Tell us something about it. How long have you been building that layout?
Oh, Russell know when I started, about 1976, I should think, when I started. But it took a long, long time. The easiest thing to do is to go onto the guild's, the video services part and look up my story.
Yes.
There's a film of it as well as a book of it. And that's the easiest way to explain it. It saves a hell of a lot of talking.
And have you built all the stock yourself?
Most of it. A good friend of mine, he was a German ex-POW. He joined the club many years ago, and he was N-gauge at the start, but he started in O-gauge, and he's built some wonderful engines, and they all run as they should. There was no messing about with him at all. And when he, before he died, he had, he got so he couldn't see very well and he couldn't travel, he couldn't get out here, and I bought all his stuff off it. And it's all still running as he made it.
Lovely.
Everything's still working.
One of the nice things about a railway is if we start building a layout or do something, or you belong to the guild for a number of years like I have, you find that you collect things. And some of those things I've had collected are things that have been built for me or given to me by other members. And those things are special to remember them by, because some of those people are no longer with us. And that's a very nice way of, it's not about how detailed it is, it's just that it was a model built by somebody that was a friend or a colleague, you know. Those things are very
a lot of mine, what Gary had made, we ran the two layouts together. Castlegarry was the room he was in, and between us we built the layout. I electrocuted it, and Gary built all the locos and a lot of the scenery up that end. And then when he got so he couldn't travel about or do anything, because he was a little bit older than I was, and he, I bought it off him. We knew what it was valued at, because they were both valued, mine and his were the same price. And I told him, I said, I can't give you the full whack for it, but I can give you $4 grand for the lot. And he said, you will? I said, of course I will. I said, I'm not going to split it up. I said, you can come anytime while you can get here and operate it. There's no messing. And I said, they'll be here when I'm gone. But that's how we left it. He made a breakdown crane, a traveling one that worked. And he wouldn't sell that part, that breakdown crane. He wanted to leave it with his wife on the mantelpiece. And when he eventually passed on, she came to me at the funeral and she said, would you like the crane? I nearly snatched her hand off. But I left it for a month, and then I went and fetched it. And it was in a plastic shopping bag in bits.
In bits? Oh.
Half the bits were missing. The carrying truck was missing. Half the cab had fell off and was disappeared. The control gear that I'd made for it, that had gone. The van that was behind it, the work van, that had gone. So I had to completely rebuild the blasted thing. It took ages, but it's still going now, so I've got it.
Very good. I'll tell you a little story about a breakdown train. I was given one by somebody who died recently called Bruce Clark from Ilkley. And he had a big garden railway that got me into gauge in the garden. And he gave me the breakdown crane in a box, its own box and carrying case. And he asked me, would I ever look after it and make sure that it was well maintained. It has 7 motors in it, so it does all the movements with the jib and everything. And the last time I actually went to his house to see him, he unfortunately died this last year, he gave me another item, which was the toolbox to go with the breakdown vehicle. And he said, I haven't parted with this before because my father built this. It's a wooden body with a cholesterol roof, and his father had built that, and that was very precious to him. So I've now put the two together, and although I'm fine scale now, and this was built in coarse scale standards and was all soldered up so you couldn't pull it apart, I've put a bit of track aside with a double insulation joint in it, and it sits there quite proudly next to the loco shed. That's where it's going to go, as long as I'm alive anyway.
Not a bad idea really, because I found out you can still run coarse scale wheels, these old big coarse scale wheels, on Pico and Mark Weight track.
Yeah.
All you do is just open it out back to 29, back to back 29, and you can run them through all the track, because I've got the camera, the wagon I use to take the camera around on the line when you're filming the engine driver's view. I put wheels, coarse scale wheels in that so as it doesn't drop in the frogs.
Yes, yeah.
Because you get a nasty little bump every time. And it doesn't mind the bumps when you're playing trains, but because they don't fall off anyway. But if you got the scale, these coarse scale wheels on, they never fall off, they never drop in the thing, they run perfectly well. I've got a push-pull coach. I haven't got any scale wheels to put in it, so I put coarse ones in. Opened them out to 29 back to back, perfect. Mind you, when you look underneath, you can see the course.
Yes.
Who looks underneath?
Nobody. Very few.
Well, they do, but I'll give you an instance of that. When I used to be building locos in the shed on a club night, somebody come in and say, oh, what do you got there? And pick it up, turn it upside down, and all the coal would come out. Because it was all loose I'd put in. And what do? They turn it upside down. So a few swear words later, and the Hoover come out to clear it all up, and that was it. Russell know what I'm talking about.
I haven't any questions so far. If you want to ask a question, go to chat, please, and let me have your questions so I can give them to John. How big is the layout, John, in size?
Oh, it goes through about 8 sheds. So I think it's about 8. The first shed is 27 by 19, and it does one side and one end, and then it comes out across a 14-foot roadway, then into the Canham shed, which is 20 foot by 14. It goes through another shed, which is 12 by 14. There's no scenery in that one. It goes to the next shed, which is Castlegarry. It goes into the next shed, which is the dock room with all the bits in. It goes through another spare shed, which used to be the 00 room when the club was here. And then it goes in another shed where there was a Scottish end. And then it goes through the wall of that one into the next one where it does a reverse loop and comes back. And that's it. I don't know how many feet that is, about a fair few.
A fair few. Yeah. And is it modelled in any particular period?
Just before British Rail.
Right.
There might be the odd wagon in there that was built after 48, but it shouldn't be, but I bet there is. Because I've got engines that should have been packed up before and perhaps only just got there, but basically it's 47, 48.
Around that period.
Yeah,
The question's come up. Have you got a favourite loco that you've built?
yeah, I've got two or three really. I've got a G5, which I'm quite pleased with. It runs on two bogies.
All right, yes, because it's a 4044, isn't it?
Yeah, and the bogie picks up one side and the driving wheels pick up the other side, because the driving bogie is completely separated from the carrying one. And that means that the buffers are over top of the rails on a 3-foot curve. Because the driving bogie it's pivoted over the back axle or the leading axle.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of room under the side tanks for the bogie to swing. And that runs a treat. No pickups to worry about.
Does it have coal rails on the
Yep.
end?
Oh, it's got all the gubbins.
Oh, very good.
There might be a lot of funny bits missing that you could never see.
No.
Because I can't see it, I don't make it. I've only ever made one loco kit in my life, and that was Andrew. Is it David Andrews?
Yeah.
Kit?
David Andrews.
Yeah, it was a P2, and I've got more bits left over than I started with.
I can make a better one than that.
And that picks up from the tender one way and the loco the other, so there's no pickups on that at all. That saves a lot of time.
I'll come for the tea in a minute. So I'm going to.
So,
Who's getting tea?
who said that? Was that a question?
I'll be in a minute.
It's all right, I've muted them. It's okay. Somebody's joined us who wasn't muted, so I've muted them.
What do we
what
get?
other engines are your favourite then?
Do what?
What other engines do you have that are a favourite?
I got a D49 that's all scratch built, and a J24 that was the one that I turned all the wheels for. A good friend of mine, who, of course, he's dead for now, but he showed me how to turn wheels. And he was bloody brilliant. He was the bee's knees on engineering. And I'd got the lathe, he set it all up for me, and he used to give me a job on a Friday night. He said, you can do that on the wheels. He said, you got 6 on the engine, 6 on the tender, do all that lot. He said, you do this job, it'll take you a week. It did. And then the next week, it was do the next bit on the wheel, you know, where the splashes are, well, not the splashes, the weights and all that. By the time I'd done that, I got fed up. I got it done, and it all ended up, according to Dennis, it was all down to to about 1 thou accurate. That's how good it was. And the tender, when I built that, I thought, well, while I was doing that, I put the brakes on as well. And I made them loose, so as you turned a little handle and the brakes come on, all 6. And I thought, that's nice, but I had to undo all that because some of our club members, who Russ would know, come in and turn the brakes on, and I tried to pull it round, skidding. I nearly put a flat on all the 6 wheels.
A question's come up on the screen from King.
Yes.
How long does it take a train to go around the various sheds, and do you get a loss of power?
Not really. Not really a loss of power, no. They do go a long way, and the controller that will be driving the train from one end to the other is also at the end it's going to. Because all the controllers, it's like cab control. You can switch to any
controller
section anywhere you are. So one controller can drive the lot, but you never see it. So we have baby alarms set up all over the place so that I can see where I'm going. Else I get lost.
And how long does it take to get right the way around then?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm not very mobile myself. I have to have a buggy to get about now. But for me to start an engine off at one place, by the time I walk down there, it's got there as well.
Right.
Now, when I was young and fit, I could get there and have to wait for it, but not anymore. I don't do it anymore unless I turn the last section off so as it runs on a dead section. Else it hit the wall and go through it.
And how do you go for track cleaning then?
Simple. Just use a Gary Flex block. You know, the one that takes paint off things for housework and all that.
Yeah.
I pinched them from the wife when she was here.
And how often do you do it?
Not very.
No?
If an engine sort of starts hesitating and fiddling about, I just give it just a little wipe over with it and that's it. Of course, I mostly spray most things with WD-40. That seems to work miracles. Nobody seems to like WD-40, but I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
If I get an engine that doesn't work very well, I hold it up in the air because I daren't turn it over because the coal, the fire irons and everything will fall out on the floor, the lamp irons and everything. So I just hold it up in the air, squirt underneath with WD-40 and put it back on the track.
I didn't notice when I watched the video. Do you have crew on all your locos then?
Yep.
You do. Yeah.
And some of them fall out if you pick them up. Now, there's a lot of things that are not fixed on the layout at all. They just stand there like some of the people. They just file the feet flat so they've got something to stand on. But it's only when a mouse goes in or a bird flies along and knocks them over that I worry about them. Signals
Worry
fly
about them.
They all fall over, but they're made to fall over. Because when you run in a club, you don't have to make things that are solid.
No.
Because somebody is going to knock it over. And all the signals where they get knocked over, it don't do them any harm because it's only homemade solenoids underneath that are made anyway. So it don't cost anything.
You make those yourself, did you?
Only time. And that's what we got plenty of, or we used to, but we don't have so much now, but we did have.
And how frequently do you operate it then, nowadays?
Say again.
How often do you operate it nowadays?
When it's cold, not at all, because it's damn cold up there at the minute. But normally, I'll be up there about once a week. And then we run a sequence timetable, and we used to be able to do it when there was 3 of us. It used to take about 4 hours. They'd come in the morning about 10:30, because they was all retired like me, and we'd be finished by 4 o'clock, and they'd go home and we'd do a day's operating. Well, now when I'm on my own, it takes me 4 days to do a day, and I'm starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sometimes still going at 8 o'clock at night. But I'll drive in between each shed and do a session in that shed, and then a session in the next shed to keep up with a sequence. It does take a long time.
A question coming from Keith is, what part of modelling do you most enjoy?
Operating.
Yeah. Yes.
Operating and filming it.
I used to love it at the end of the session when somebody used to send you the final goods train, and it was about 40 vehicles long and you only had room for 35 in the sidings. And what were you going to do with the spare ones? Those are the problems I like.
I've had friends like that. That's friends you don't really need when you're busy.
I thought it was supposed to be an engine and brake. Oh, well, I added a few on.
I know, it happens in every club.
Yes, yeah.
I can see that.
Has anybody else got any more questions for John? It's 2:50. There's plenty of time. We've got, I can tell you, we've got 15 participants. Has anybody got any questions for John?
Somebody's waving his hand. What's it? Alan Morgan.
Alan Morgan, yes.
Hello, Alan.
Hello. John, you may remember me. We visited you the last time about 3 or 4 years ago.
Wouldn't be at all surprised.
Yeah, with my wife. But what I remember of your layout is how it's grown. When I first worked with British Sugar and came to see it, must be, well, 50 years ago now, if not more than that. But what I like about it, having seen it at odd times over the years, is the consistency of everything. There's nothing that, whether it's locos, rolling stock, the scenery, the buildings, everything fits together. There's nothing that jumps out and jars, like, because it's either inferior to something else or supposedly superior to something else. It all just nicely blends together. And that's, to me, what makes it a real railway.
Well, thank you very much, but it's not intentional doing things on that. It's just because I'm not clever enough to have anything absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
So it all has to be sort of looks right. That does me.
but I've always called it cricket pitch modelling or over the fence modelling. You look at, I mean, if I look at my window, I can see the railway half a mile away, the Kidderminster Birmingham line, and there's everything in between, and it all nicely blends together. And as you said yourself, you don't see the bits that's underneath a wagon or underneath a loco, but if you're looking at it, you see in model form what you would see in real life, and that's the bit that really impresses me, because you've done it on such a vast size as well. So
Yeah, well, I don't know. I've done a bit of drawing, and I've never done any painting, but I've done a bit of pencil drawing in my time. And I know what I want, because I've seen most of what I want. I know what it looks like, and I try to make it like that. It's like putting scenery on. You can buy all these scenic things from whatever shops they sell it at. But I found out that I can go in the tractor shed on a concrete floor after harvest. I can sweep it up, I can sieve it out, and I can find all the dust and bits and pieces, and I use that as ground cover. You can't get any cheaper than that.
Yep.
If you ask old Russ over there sitting in the middle of this screen, he'll know what a tight little devil I am. I don't spend any money if I can afford.
Yeah, he never spends money. He always finds things to make things out of.
I've been a lazy old man. That's what it is.
No, I don't believe that at all.
I do. It's a lazy man's way of doing things. Because old Dennis, when he was here, he was the engineer one, and he used to say to me, he said, "Oh, you said, well, why do you do it like that?" And he'd tell me why he did it. I said, "Well, I wouldn't have done it like that. I'd have done so and so." And they came one day, one club night, and between them, they'd built a V2, and they was going to take it up north and sell it to some club or individuals that lived up Leeds way somewhere. And I said, "Well, it's not running all that well," because they brought it up mine to run it round the track. And the first thing it did, it sheared the back pony truck side frame off, because it was built over wide to go round a curve so they could swing. And it came to one of my bridges, which was made with a 2-inch nail holding the rail on the top of the bridge. Of course, it hit that. It didn't knock the nail out, but it took the bits clean off the side of the logo. But nothing more for that. I said, "It don't run very well." I said, "It's them springs you put in the what do they call, the horn blocks." I said, it won't run with them on." He said, "Well, we're taking it." Well, they brought it back the next week. I said, "Didn't it go?" He said, "No, he didn't want it." I said, "Well, take them blasted springs out and throw them away." So I took the springs out, tucked them on the table out the way, put the wheels back up in the horn blocks, put the wheels on, put the keeper plate up on the bottom, put it back on the track, ran perfect. They took it back the next week and sold it just like that. So that's what springing does. So that's a waste of time, wasn't it? I thought it was a waste of time. If you've got a bit more slop and tickle on your pins and your rods and God knows what, and as long as it's free running, and you put an extra, what I do, I put a slightly bigger drill, because I bought a box of drills years ago, going from sort of 1 to 101 or whatever size they went to, and there's hardly any difference in between them, any of them. And you get the one that for the axle, you put that through and it turns, but you put the next size in, you can spin that wheel with your finger just like that, and it's going round, beautiful. So what I do when I get it all built up, I just put the drill straight through one side and out the other, from one side of the frame to the other to the next bearing, on all 6, put it back together, and you can spin the wheels as easy as that. And you never get any binding whatsoever on the axles. You try and scale it down, you'll get more trouble than enough.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, I reckon so. I'm a great believer in what trying used to do. They never had any trouble with our chassis running. They'd go over and matchsticks. But I suppose that's me being, I don't know, a bit more.
I've got a question here from James. It says, what would you be the best materials to use if you were building your first model railway? I'm building it in 00. I'm building the old Harecourt Street railway line in Ireland, based in the 1950s. So any tips would be a great help. That's my question. So the best materials to use if you're building with, depends what you're building, I suppose, doesn't it, to a greater extent?
Oh yeah, but I've used I've used John Deere oil cans, tractor oil, 25-litre ones, and that is very good strong tin. I've even used that to make the boat. That G5 is made out of a John Deere oil can. But I've also used bean tins, or any tin. I've got a set of rollers. I can roll any boiler I want, whatever shape, size I want. That's no problem. I just use material that's at hand that I've got. If I'm putting boiler bands on, I just cut myself a bit of adhesive tape and stick it round. You won't know that's not a bit of brass or a bit of adhesive tape when it's painted and finished. Simple. It saves all scraping all that solder off when you're finished. Rain strips on coaches are the same. Just a bit of tape, put it on, stick it down on your mat on the table, cut yourself a slice off, peel it up, put it on the top of the roof, done. That's your rain strip. You're only going to see as it goes by. You're not going to take too much notice of it.
As long as it looks right.
As long as it looks right, that's good enough. They're what you call 7mm eyeballs.
Right, well, it's now 3 o'clock. I've no more questions at the moment. Can I take this opportunity to thank you all for attending? Can I especially thank John for entertaining us for half an hour? It's been great fun. We've enjoyed your video, John.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you sit up here on your own all day, it's nice to have half a dozen people to talk to.
Yeah, thanks, John. Much appreciated.
That's all right, Alan. No problem.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And all of you
Right,
out
I'll
there.
close the session there. I've got one last session to do in 1/4 of an hour, which is
corner here.
by Derek Reeves, and that's called
Ralph
Monster.
up the top. That's not the Ralph I know, is it? The one on the Ralph, wherever he is. He's not got his sound on.
Ralph?
Ralph, he's on there in the middle of the screen.
I'll ask
Ralph with a beard.
I've asked him to unmute.
Unmute, Ralph.
He's not hearing. He's not hearing.
Is he? Oh, well.
Anyway, thank you all very much for attending. Thank you, John, especially.
That's all. Made my afternoon. But if you could have a word with, what's his name? Peter Reynolds, is it?
Yes.
He's the one that put it through his computer. And I
Yes.
sent it to him. I did tell him that it was, because he sent me one back. And that was narrow screen, 543. I told him about it. He said, oh, I've done the other one. He said, I'll give that one to the guild, the other one. But I think he gave him the same one as he sent to me.
All right.
So,
I'll have a word with him for you.
because he put it on Vimeo, is it what they put on that? He did all the other ones all right, that's no problem, but it was filmed in widescreen.
Widescreen.
Yeah. And it looks a bit odd without, because the brake vans all look narrow.
Narrow. Yes. Yeah.
And there's a Ford 8 car on there, and it looks as if somebody's kicked it up the backside. So that's what it is. Anyway, I'll better leave you to it now.
All right, John. Many thanks. Goodbye, all. See you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.